Okay, so this is to answer a question that has been pretty consistent over quite some time. And it's, why aren't you copying, when you study? And the answer is yes, copy when you're studying. If you're looking at a tree and you're studying, study the tree, copy the tree, really look. So the beginning of your art training is to get the eye and the hand coordination work. So we'll get to that in a second. But why don't you copy? And it comes down to learning, learning the fundamentals. So let's do a little narrative, because that's how I teach. Let's just say, let's see. Okay, so you've heard of a self-taught artist, correct? Okay, we've all heard of it. We accept a self-taught artist. But what do you call a self-taught surgeon? A murderer. See, so when I was young, what happened is I had this certain, well, let's try it. Let's try a little narrative. So somebody out there ask me a question. Say, I'm going to pretend that I'm a surgeon. Okay, so let's go somebody, far away. Let's go to Kansas. Okay, so somebody in Kansas asked me a question. Say, we're going to do surgery. So I'm going to say, okay, Kansas, I have you down on my calendar right here the next Thursday. I'm going to perform surgery on you. I'm going to cut you open and you're going to bleed. Okay, so ask me what training I have. Go ahead. Okay, so the question was, what kind of training do you have? And the answer to that is, I don't have any. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always had this certain affinity and desire to cut things. And I started on goldfish, which was easy, moved rapidly to a more complex subject, which was, like these little gerbil hamster things that we had around the house. Got very good at cutting them, but it was only till I went after the cats and the dogs and the neighborhood that my parents realized that I had a gift. Okay, so Kansas, ask me another question. Say, what process are you going to use? Okay, go ahead. Okay, so the question that I just got from Kansas was, Sheldon, what process are you going to use? Okay, so let me give you an answer on that one. Are you ready? I don't have one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, you'll be on the table, and I'm just going to cut you open, and I'm just going to trip out on it, man. And I'm just going to, kind of look inside and kind of see, I'm going to wait for like your insides to kind of speak to me, and they're going to talk to me, and I'm going to talk to them, and we're going to have that rare moment of, things moving in my one-to-one to your insides. Can you hold on a second? Hold on a second. Hold on. Let me grab this real quick right here. Okay, you got this? Okay, hold on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is then I'm just going to kind of trip out, man. And if there's something that's like kind of hard, I'm going to break it off and put it in. Okay, we're still going to do surgery? No. Reason why is I don't have any training. So what I did is I have close to probably 2,000 books in my studio. And I just grabbed a handful of them. So what you see here on this desk is just a handful of books. And I thought I would, kind of go through and look for some of the similarities between the books and show why they're important. And what I'm going to show you is all to the point that you can successfully put a mark on the paper. Draw all you want. That's fine. But to be a professional, the way I was taught by my teachers, which go back, I'm 60 now, started at 13, professional training, and teaching at 19. I got to tell you, if I'm not giving you the real information, my teachers are going to come back from the grave and kick my butt. I taught some kids today. They were 9, 10, and I think one of them was 12. It's a junior portfolio class at our school. And what I'm about to show you, information-wise, they learned. They're learning. So the trick is to teach it right and get it going. So the first book I want to show you is this guy right here, Robert Beverly Hale. And he's got a really good quote in this book. What he says is, first you draw what you see. Now, it looks really good and it feels good. And you get that artist, oh, you know, that little, oh, you know, that, ooh, that feels so good. You know, somebody looks at it and they go, wow, that looks just like the photo. And they put it on the refrigerator and everybody say that's amazing. And they don't realize that the worst insult you can give to somebody as an artist is that looks just like the photograph. The photograph has distortion in it. So we'll start with one of the first quotes moving off this book. Now, you're going to say, this is so Sheldon, because I'm going to be all over the place. There's a story of a painting teacher, and the painting teacher is looking at the model, looking at the artwork from the students, and it just doesn't look right. You know, the shadows just don't look right. They don't make sense. They don't make sense. They're pretty, but they don't make sense. And the teacher looks at the shadows and looks up at the model, and the same shadow was on the model, and all of the students were copying the shadow from the model. But it didn't make sense. It just wasn't logical to the structure and anatomy of the model. So the teacher looks up at the skylight, and there's a cat sleeping on the skylight, and everybody was copying it, and that's called the cat on the skylight story. So that's what we're dealing with here. So the first quote from Robert Beverly Hale is, first you draw what you see. Teacher walks up to you, if you can find it, if you can find the teacher that will come up and says, no, that doesn't work. And so what happens is you need to study. So then the student studies. Now the artwork becomes clinical, sterile, has no emotion, no feeling. Okay, that's the next level. Can't use it because it's not art. It doesn't have a feeling and emotion. So then we get to the next step, which is the final step, which Robert Beverly Hale says, is that from there, you know what you see and you see what you know. So in the first steps, you know what you see. It doesn't work, but it looks good. The next is you draw what you know, which is sterile and really bad, but it's right. And then the next one is you know that there's a halftone. You know there's a halftone there. It has to be there because of the rhythm chart. So then you look for it, and then you put it down. That's where we want to be, okay? So that's this book right here. And I'm just going to take these books and throw them on a chair. This is really important. This is a guy named Norman Rockwell, and you can see this book goes for hundreds of dollars now, and you can see how much I've used it. And this page is really important. If you look at his figures, you'll see that he's putting a skull behind every one of the faces. So everything you draw is going to have a skull. Okay, now here's where it got really weird. Up until 1960, everybody got the same training. So if you went to art school, you got the same training. Then around 1960, things changed. It was sex and drugs and rock and roll. That's all it means to me. And, you know, that people would just throw stuff up on the canvas, and it was really fun and crazy. And that's good, because in the end, that's what we want to get to. We want to get to that spontaneous child. But it still has to have all these foundations and fundamentals in there. And they were leaving that out. So now these people weren't getting jobs. So where the training came into was in the world of animation. And there you had to know how to draw that skull. So that was really crucial. Now, what I experienced in my 40 years of teaching, and right now I'm very selective on where I teach and who I teach. And the reason why is about 10 years ago in the college classroom, I had to start selling the fundamentals. Students were rejecting it. It was like history was repeating. And, you know, it was okay, but it was a big, really waste of time, because I had to spend like half the class selling why I was teaching what I was teaching, even though I was naming the teachers that they were researching. Now think about it. They're researching people that they want to, you know, be like, but I got to work with those people and study with them, but literally work alongside them, you know, my whole life, you know, up until the time they passed away, and continue to pass on that information as an obligation to my teachers. Well, around 2017, the students started to attack. So not only were they rejecting the information, they were attacking it. Now, I know that I had a very crazy way of teaching it with wild stories and stuff, but there was a Harvard study being done on how to teach. And it was exactly what I was doing. By the use of songs and limericks and stories and outlandish things, students would remember. So the research was showing that. Plus, the Harvard study, you know, with flexible performance capabilities. If you teach the student this, then it applies to everything else. So everything I was teaching in the classroom was not only backed up by research and papers and white papers, but also I have a friend who's a child psychiatrist, you know, because I work in forensics, and I would run all the stories by him. And I would be in the airport singing and dancing these stories, and he would approve every one of them. So they were designed to get the information into the head of the student. But then the students started to attack, and they went for the throat. And at that point, it got a little bit to the point where it was too dangerous to teach in the college classroom. So now I'm wondering, is it even taught anymore? Because the good teachers I know, a lot of them are getting out because it's dangerous. Okay, so let's now go through books. They're in random order because I just took them off my shelf and threw them on the desk. I'm looking at a studio right now with literally probably just under 2,000 books. This is just a bare minimum, and this is information that you do need to know before you can confidently start to draw. So the first one is good old Norman Rockwell. Okay, know your anatomy, know your structure. There's another Norman Rockwell book, this one here. Okay, this is super freaking cool. So this is Rockwell behind the camera. So here you get to see the photograph and you get to see the painting. He's not copying it. Okay, so if you look, like here, you recognize these people. You see, he's using himself as a model. You know, God forbid you live on a block with an artist, because you're going to be posing in some painting. For me, I have my school, and the kids come in, and I say, hey, you know, I need you to, you know, act out something for me today. That's all reference, and boy, you study it. But if you look, you can see, like, you know, here's the boy, and there he is. He's basically caricaturing. Like, this is really famous. I got to meet this guy. He's dead now. I got to meet him because I work in forensics, and he was at the conference, and there was a long line for people to talk to him, and my mentor moved everybody out of the way, and I got to walk right up to him and shake his hand, and I have a picture standing right next to him. So this is a real officer, a real cop. There is your your reference, and here's the painting. It is not a copy. Okay, it is interpreted, but you research a lot. So in any painting or drawing that I do, I research probably a week straight before I start drawing, because I want it to be accurate. I want it to be, you know, like, look at, here's this guy, and then looks like Lincoln, you know. So, but here he's got a modeling. Okay, so that's good old Norm, my hero. If you want to study painting, study Norman Rockwell. Okay, go to the Getty and spend your life there. This is I think probably the thing I miss the most about being locked in. Not a whole lot's changed in my life because I'm a recluse hermit, which I think is probably, if I could on my deathbed laugh at one of the things, is that the students who wrote about me saying that I was crazy and out there and, you know, wild, and I never shut up. I only talk. They didn't know me. The people who know me know that I'm a recluse hermit, and I spend days without speaking to anybody, just studying. And after I'm done doing this little lecture, which I'll then get over to Corey, I'll be studying again. So right now it's 10 o'clock. I'll probably study till 1 o'clock in the morning tonight. So, you know, sorry guys, you're a little off on that one. But when I do talk, I have a lot to talk. I asked Glenn Villepeu once, my mentor, which we'll get to the end. And I said, Glenn, you know, people say I talk too much. And he said, no, Sheldon, you're a teacher. He said, if you ask, you know, a normal person a question, they'll give you an answer. But if you ask a teacher, they're going to tell you the history, the current, and the future. So I would say spend your whole life in the Getty if you can, or a museum like the Getty. And I really miss, that's probably the biggest thing I miss about being locked in is, and probably one of the few things, because I'm very content being by myself. But I have sat in front of this painting and stared at it and put my face next to it. And I know the guards pretty well, but sometimes they'll say, step back. And I go, I'm not going to lick the painting because I keep my hands in my back pocket. But wow, I just go crazy over this painting. But I have been through the Getty so many times. I have drawn this from life so many times, but not copying it, interpreting it, looking for, for the information. Now, if you're going to do the painting, you want to know the distance between the belly button and the external oblique. Yeah, look at it. Of course, look at it. There's a difference between that and copying it. Let's see, this guy right here, anatomy. I have so many anatomy books in my studio. I'm an anatomy fanatic, and I'll show you that at the end. So you got to, do you need to learn all the muscles? No, I say just the LA muscles. I always say that, just the, this LA muscles, superficial muscles. And, but I go deeper, because I fall in love with forensics. So, I go deep in. But, you have to learn your anatomy. So you got that. We'll put this guy aside for a second. Here you go, skulls. Here's a skull, right? And here's my drawing on top of it, showing what the person would look like when they're alive. But everything has a skull, and fish have skulls, and people have skulls, and birds have skulls. Do you have to learn these? Yeah. If you're going to be an animator and you're going to animate a Persian cat, yeah, you have to know the skull. So that means if you're going to animate a duck-billed platypus, do you have to know the skull? Yeah, you do. So you're going to have to sit down and just relax, like I just did, go to the freezer, get some ice cream, put some banana in there, make a banana split, sit down and study, let's drink coffee at the same time. Okay. Look at this guy right here, grooves. Okay. So anatomy. Okay. Here we go. So this is a great anatomy book, one of the best. And, it's wonderful. You got all these little notes in the back, and you study it. I have 3 of these in my studio, 3 of this book. I've got one right here. Okay, here's the book. Okay, here's another one right here. Am I getting my point across? I don't even have to walk across my studio to get to this book. They're everywhere. I just buy tons of them, okay? So that's another one there. Let's see, Drawing Without a Model. Here's a book. It's called Figure Drawing Without a Model. So, do you need to know how to draw without a model? Well, yeah, I got this in London. When I was teaching, I was ramping up a studio for Warner Brothers. Yes, it's all right here. And look what's in there. The skull. We open up the book. There's the skull. So all the information is in here. Grouping shadows. Here's anatomy. We got anatomy. All my brothers, sisters, and me. It's all there. Proportions. All the same stuff that I'm going to show you is in this book, Drawing Without a Model. Going back. Look at this. Going back to the Bible. This is the Bible, okay? No, but these are wood carvings by Door. I have studied these so much. These aren't copied because it didn't happen. This is a fable. This is a book. It's a book, you guys. But people like it. I'm an atheist, so that's fine. I'm an atheist Jew, so I'm a walking oxymoron. But look at this drapery. It's so beautiful, you see? And it's so well structured in the composition. And look at these values right here. That's animation, foreground, middle ground, background. Same thing, okay? Take that over to grooves and you'll see there's a rhythm chart. You see, this would be Riley. But wait a second, Riley wasn't born yet, you see? So if we go over and we find one of the Riley books around here somewhere, where's my Riley? I studied with Fred Fixler personally. For 6 years, I studied with that guy and loved it. He was brutal. Today, the students would cry if they had to study with Fred. And because I was a Vilpoo, he was brutally tough on me. He wanted to break me, but he couldn't because my first teacher was tougher. And my first teacher, my name was goddammit Sheldon, and he would just go crazy on me. But look at these little cross contours here. So those cross contours are the same cross contours that you see here. So you have to know where they are so you can put them in those brushstrokes. You see? Is it making sense? So it's not just copying the model, but you have to look at the model. Look at these cross contours. I teach this to 6-year-olds, to 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds. I taught it to a 5-year-old the other day. Let them know it now. Let them know it sooner, you see? So that's a really cool book. Okay, so let's keep going. This guy right here, Paul Kelly. I have 2 of these books. You know, God forbid I should have to walk, you know, across my studio, okay? So Paul Kelly, you'll see very similar in his rhythm chart, in the planes and the rhythms. So what you're learning from Riley, what you're learning from Loomis, which I'm going to show you, what you're learning in my school, what you're learning from Vilpu, it's all right here with Paul Kelly. But he's not copying the model. He's making it better. And then if you come over here and you look over here, you'll know why you have Riley, because you could organize the face. And that's with the anatomy. But look at that. Now you have to organize this. If you just copy it, it's a cluster F thing. You got to be able to go in there and have foreground, middle ground, background, guide the eye, composition. So first you draw, you see, but you have to look at it to know where the waterfall is. So this is a great book. Okay, so I got that one. Let's see what else. Let's see. This one here should have been the first one we looked at. And this guy, Steve Hanks, this book's worth a fortune today. And he's amazing. And you think he's a realist guy. But if you were to look at the model, I think you would find that even though this is photorealism, he's designing what you're seeing. He's making it better. And that's where, it's better. So the more you know, the more you see. And you can start seeing where he's playing with these edges. This cast shadow hits that core shadow. That's design. 2 hard edges, because they're both cast shadows. But, here's a firm shadow. So we have hard edge, firm edge. This is painting. It's really important. So this is Steve Hanks, which you think he's copying, but he's really not. Okay? So that book's worth a ton of money today. Going back to Bernini, I think Bernini knew what he was drawing, you see. And again, rhythm chart, understanding, organizing. Hopefully I'm getting my point across. But again, he made it better. And the drapery, it's very well organized. Now, when you're drawing the drapery, there's 7 folds. And they're in my book and Vilpu's book. 7 folds. You got a pipe fold, a zigzag, a half lock. You've got to know this. Do you have to know it? Yes, you do. So I've studied it a lot. So let's go back to good old Bernini. And you can see, his knowledge of structure and how things fit, the fingers going in, the rhythm, look at the, we call it opposing curves, but, we've got opposing curves this way. And then we have, the composition, which is opposing directions, which, Glenn talks about a lot. And there you go. And what you're going to find, from this little talk is listen to Vilpu. He's the greatest living artist alive today. Okay, so then you can go over to here, Pontormo, and you're really going to see design. You're really going to see where Pontormo makes it better. He organizes it. He knows what he's looking for. I think this is Albrecht Dürer, and yep, Albrecht Dürer. So I look at this drawing. I know it's Albrecht Dürer. How do I know? Because I've studied him a lot, and you can see how it's very well designed, different than this guy here, who I don't even know, Bernstein, somebody different. But this looks like Pontormo. You can see with these weird eyes, that's very Pontormo. So you can see, yeah, this is Pontormo. So if you look, he's got these really kind of weird, strange, round eyes, you see. So he's designing. But if you look, there's a zygomatic process. So he's definitely studied his anatomy, and it shows up in the painting. So when people will do a copy of this painting, the structure doesn't work, the gesture doesn't work, the folds don't work. And they go, isn't it beautiful? And I say, no. And then they get mad at me. Okay. Let's get back to our buddy here, Michelangelo. And this was from the show. A student bought it for me. And this was my Allie, who is amazing. If anybody out there wants to hire somebody incredible, just hire Allie. And she's taught for me, and she's incredible. And she bought me this book. But, you know, when do you have this to copy? You know, what they did is they have a model take a pose, and you might do some studies from that pose, you see. You'll do studies, you know, and that's just for your knowledge. And then you have to draw it out of your mind. And that's what Michelangelo did. So, you know, he would do all these, you know, these little studies, okay? Like here, you know, here's a study. And, you know, I don't think a model was going to pose for that long. Maybe they did. But you get the information. And then from here, then you finish and you do the finished drawing. So that's good old Mike. He's a good guy. Okay. Let's keep going. Let's jump over to here with color. Wayne Theobold. Courtney Granner, one of great teacher, good friend, mentor. And he said, you know, Sheldon, your color is starting to look, you're practicing broken color. And he introduced me to this guy and, you know, Wayne Theobold, and he's still alive and changed my life. So this book changed my life, as did Courtney Granner and Alice Carter changed my life when they hired me to teach at San Jose. So, you know, wild, like where, you know, Rubens studied from Michelangelo and copied his stuff and really followed him. So did I follow Alice Carter and Courtney Granner, and they changed my life, and I will always love them for it. But Courtney turned me on to this guy, and I've been studying him ever since. And the way he's putting color down next to each other, pure color, to net out the finish is beautiful. Very different. You have to know what you're looking for first. Okay, so let's keep going. Design. Let's go to this guy. Good old Muka. Okay. Again, this isn't what people look like, but she has a skull. Her eyes are in the head. The nose is, you know, it's in there. It really works. See, but if you look of the folds work, you see. So if you look here, they're designed, but they're taken right from the Renaissance. So do you need to study the Renaissance before you can get to this? Yeah, you do. That doesn't mean you can't sketch and draw, but you need to know this. And before 1960, this was taught in every college, every art department. Okay, so we got that. We'll put this aside. Design. Let's go right here. This book by Graham, you know, taught the artists at Disney. Amazing book. Just every page blows your mind on how to move imagery so that it designs and it, you know, it takes your eye on the journey. So, I mean, you know, every month or every so many weeks, I take this off the shelf and just take one page. But right here, I mean, working in forensics, this is it. So, excellent book on design. Okay, this book right here is the Bible of all Bibles. It used to be $500. Now you can get it for like $40. And this is the Bible of all the industries. And this is Creative Illustration by Loomis. And it's got everything in here. It's got your color. See, here's your color theory. I learned color from this book from a Xerox, you guys. From a Xerox. I couldn't afford the book. It was out of print. It's like $500. So I got a Xerox of it. I borrowed the book and I made Xeroxes. And I couldn't even afford to make color Xeroxes yet. And I read the chapter on color and learned color from this book. You know, one of the other greatest living artists alive today is Bill Perkins, and he was teaching me value from this book, taking, you know, little Xeroxes of it. So this is a book that has definitely had its, you know, history, and it's still as current today as it was back in the olden days. So, boy, was I happy. I had a kid that I was mentoring, and she couldn't afford the book. So I told her, I said, you know, I'm a snob. I bent part of the page. Can I give this to you? Because I have to buy another one. And I gave her the book because she had to have it, you know, which is some things you have to have. So let's keep going over here. So look at this. This is somebody that you think is completely copying. Okay. But if you get into the book, you'll see these beautiful scribbles, you know. Just amazing. Just amazing. Look at this. They're just scribbles telling the story. You see? But the student who isn't aware wouldn't come back to this simplicity. They would go right to this. But this cannot possibly happen without all of this beautiful little cartoons, they would call it in the olden days. So here's the painting. This is the essence of the painting. And this is what you'd be doing in animation to then get to this. So that's a really good book. Let's see, let's grab some of these. Okay, so over here, perspective, this series, the framed perspective, excellent. Excellent. So the first one is on my shelf somewhere, but this is great. And it talks about perspective and how to use it and everything. Do you need to know it? Yeah, you need to know it. All right, so we got that. Let's see. Let's go to Raphael. He wasn't copying. You know, how's he going to get somebody to hold a pose like that? So, you know, he'll draw from the model and study, but then most of the stuff was drawn right out of his head. And you can see, look at it, it has kind of a Dürer feel to it. So they all stole from each other, and just like today, you know, everybody grabs each other's sketchbooks and looks through it. I'm very lucky that, you know, I've been with Glenn for 40 years. So when I see him, I grab his sketchbooks and I take pictures of him, and I have them on my phone. And every time I stop moving, I open my sketchbook and I draw from Glenn. So I've been studying from Villeperdue for 40 years and still just scratching the surface. So now I'll move over to here. And this is rendering, you know. So you're not just rendering, it has a reason and how to guide the eye and simplify the shapes as your design, going back to the Graham book. Am I boring you yet? Here we go. Okay, this one right here I bought, you know, I was in Texas. I was, again, ramping up a studio, doing my job as an animation supervisor. And we had a tornado. Oh my God, I almost got caught in a tornado. Actually, we did get caught in a tornado. We almost died. And we went out that night and I saw this book. I bought it. I've never not had it next to me. Look at the beautiful design, but look at the grief. Look at the story. Look at the story. This is what it's all about. The story. This isn't from a model. This is somebody sculpting the grief of being in this graveyard. Okay. So that's really important. Going back to here, Andrew Loomis, you think he's copying because he's an illustrator. No, 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 no. Super design. Super design. Really getting there and simplifying and making it better. But does he know his anatomy? Yes, he knows his anatomy, you see. And so it's all the same, knowing the structure. This is the Loomis method of doing a lay-in. Not my favorite, but, you know, definitely been studying it for the last 40 years. You know, it's funny. If you take a look at this book, oh, by the way, this is an original Fixler drawing. So this is an actual Fixler drawing that, you know, he did, and I put it in here. But if you notice, it has the library in here. So I got this book when I was in grammar school, and I was so in love with it, I told my parents I lost it. $8.50, look at that. And we had to pay for it, but I didn't think it was available anywhere else. And so I've been studying this book since I was in grammar school. This book right here is the Bible, Figure Drawing for All It's Worth, and I didn't steal this one. But this was $11.95. You can see how long I've had this book. And it's all in there. There's your planes. But this isn't copied. But definitely studied, you see. And the same thing as the Renaissance. If you're going to be an artist, you need to know who Heinrich Clay is. So you definitely want to study as much of Heinrich Clay as possible. The first book I got from him, I was probably 14 years old. My teacher made me get it. Look at this, $2. $2. And so I've had these books since I was 14, 15 years old and been studying them ever since, because my teacher always called him the animator's animator. So I had to study this a lot and continue to. I probably have like 4 different versions of each. Let's keep going here. Let's get ugly. Let's get gross. Lucian Freud. He's very much a painter, but he's trying to make things uglier. Not more beautiful, more ugly. See? So I study him. Look at this. If this isn't disturbing, if this doesn't disturb you, then we got a problem, okay? But to go from him, we can go to this guy. This guy is so disturbing. I didn't even buy the book the first time. Ad Nerdrum. Wild stuff. Just crazy. But genius at a level that I've never seen before. But look at that. That is crazy. But the brush strokes and the color, just unbelievable stuff. But the subject matter, really wild. Look at this. Just crazy, crazy stuff. But what a painter. So I studied this. Studied a lot. Look at that. That's a self-portrait. I think he's got something to say. These self-portraits. He's got a story to tell. Look at that. You know, but you can see he's really understood, because if you make one eye straight and one off to the side a little bit, the person will follow you in the room. Like I'm moving back and forth and she's following me. It's really cool. Well, how do you know that? Study. So one eye straight, one off to the side a little bit, and they'll follow you. It's so cool, because as I turn, she's following me right now. So it's really fun. And this is stuff that you learn, you know. Who draws a bunch of dentures? So again, crazy, crazy stuff. I'm going to take this to school tomorrow, show my students. And so I have a painting class. To go from there to just the most simplicity, Charles Reed's one of my favorite painters. Courtney Grenner introduced me to him. Simplicity, just essence of the essence. Just the most simplistic, you know. And one of my heroes, you know, from, what was it? Oh, shoot, I'm going blank. Studying with him, but just so beautiful. And boy, does he know his stuff. And you can just see the structure, but just the essence of it. So I got that. Let's keep going. My favorite painter of all time, Pino. He's passed away. I would buy romance book covers, tear off the cover. I could look at a whole wall of books and pick out his book covers. And I would buy the book, and as I was leaving the store, I would be tearing the book cover off of the book, and I'd throw the book in the trash, and I would collect his book covers. And now, of course, I have this book's worth a fortune now. But I probably I don't think I do a painting of a face without having this book open. And you can see his use of broken color. So that takes us back to Theobold. You know, Wayne Theobold, with the use of broken color. So it all comes around. And look at his, you know, he really knows his structure, the rhythm chart, which takes us to Riley. And then the anatomy, it's all there, okay? So do you need to know it? Yeah, you do. Let's keep going here. This one here, Sargent and Sorolla, amazing. Amazing color, knowledge of color. So you learn this from the Loomis book, and then you go back to the, look at the study of drawing. So look at the drapery. So this goes back to the Renaissance, you see, and take a look at Leonardo da Vinci and his drapery. Look at Albrecht Dürer and their drapery, and it's just a continuous study. Look at his knowledge. Now here he's painting outside, but he knows what to look for, because you can see where he's playing with the edges and the reflected light. So he's not just copying it, but he's definitely studying. So I guess the term I'd like to use for everybody is, you're not just copying, you're studying. Okay, Zorn, of course, you know. Here, Zorn's, you know, he's painting with pen and ink, you see? And it's really cool. Here's a watercolor. I go on cruise. Well, I used to go on cruises, now I don't. But I would try to paint the water, because the water has planes. It comes up and it goes on the other side. So what I would do is try to capture the water as a test of, you know, study, and look for the rhythms of the water as it's moving in front. So that was my exercise. And that was my favorite part of going on a cruise, is just sitting there and watching the water. So what I've done the last several cruises is I videotape the water, videotape the ocean. And now when I'm working, I have 4 monitors. I just put it on one of the monitors, and now I'm on a cruise ship. But you definitely want to study Zorn, and you can see he knows what he's looking for. He's playing with the major minor, so this would be a high major, high minor. And do you need to know that? Yeah, you know, low major, high minor, probably a medium major, high minor, medium minor, you know, that type of thing, medium, high. And you know this stuff. You see high, high, and, you know, you really understand. We use that for the film industry. Okay, getting over to here. This is Riley. Why do we learn Riley? Because you have to organize a face like that. And if you don't, you copy it, it's all going to go all over the place, and it's going to get a little crazy, okay? So you don't want to do that. So this is Riley, and this is Jimmy Bama, who was roommates with Fred Fixler. So by studying with Fred, you were actually also studying with Bama, because they were roommates together in school. And we would ask questions, and Fred would teach us. So again, 6 years with Fred, and I had it tougher because I was a known Vilpoo, and Fred didn't like that. But I loved Fred, and he liked me. But he was tough on me, and I liked that, and I appreciated that. So look at Sargent playing with broken color. Take that back to Wayne Theobold. Take that back to Pinot, and you can see where it all ties together. But again, he knows his stuff. He knows his figure drawing. He knows his drapery. You know, even though he's a painter, he really has got his drawing. There's the acromion process right there. There's the deltoid. So it's all there. And he really knows this stuff. There's the skull. Again, by that time, they all had the same training. I think these guys would just freak out if they were in a college classroom and the students were attacking them for teaching. I think that would just be my teachers. First of all, they'd throw you out of the room. They would literally throw you out. But on the way out, you would be bleeding. They would just tear you apart. And if not verbally, but if they treated the teachers the way some of the students treat teachers today, it would go physical. They would throw things at you. They wouldn't put up with it. But boy, did I worship every minute that Fred was tough on me. The one thing I think, if you guys could, clear your mind for a second here, when a teacher is tough on you, it means they love you. And that's something that is not taught today, that this is a tough industry we're going into. And it's brutal. You get rejected most of the time. And so when a teacher is tough on you and rejecting you and kind of beating you up a little bit, that means they love you. That means they care about you. And if not, they just ignore you. So you don't want to be ignored. Leyendecker, here we go. I typically don't do any illustrations without having at least one Leyendecker book open. You can see how he's using every line to guide the eye. Really beautiful stuff. So again, this is not copied because he's designing. And if you look, you'll see, look at here, the broken color, see? Really great stuff. And it all comes together. And when you look at the drawing, that he does, you'll see there's a ton of cross contours in there. So that'll take you back to Greuze, So if you look at these cross contours. You see that in Pinot, you see that in Greuze, it's all there. So here we go. Let's keep going. It's going to be a very long video. Taken over here to Frizzetta. Frizzetta put it all together and did, obviously, as out of his head, he might have a model take a pose, but he's composing it all together into a picture for, to sell something, okay? And that's typically, if it exists, you're not going to get hired. And that's it. They're not going to hire you because they already have it. So if they could, take a photograph of something, especially today with Photoshop, they're not going to hire you. They need you to come up with the solutions. They need you to come up with it. In this situation, the 9 Old Men, you need to be able to open it up and say, okay, here we go. Eric Larson, he's round. Round as far as the DNA. Ward Kimball's round in the DNA. It's the way they draw. Milk Hall, very angular. You see, he's angular in how he does his drawing. I have all this memorized because I've studied these so much. Ollie Johnson, round. Here we go. Frank Thomas, more angular. You see, straighter lines. Have I studied this? Yes, a lot. And I can pretty much tell you through all of the Mark Davis, I think it's a little bit more round. He did the pretty girls and stuff. He did, but I'll have to really take a look. Maybe more angular. No, more angular because you can look at her. So, I study a lot of each artist. Here's your roughs going back to the Renaissance. You see the animation training goes right back to the Renaissance. Okay, my favorite artist today, I just bought this book. I have another one here. I'm always collecting her stuff, is this model, this artist, Eliza. And she's amazing. And you can see where she's designing and taking it to the next level. Yes, she has her structure. She has her knowledge. She's been trained and she's taken it to the next level. So she's available and I follow her on Instagram. But I just got this book 2 days ago and I've been studying like crazy, and this book I bought. So I really like her stuff. This would be my Bible. And this is the Medical Legal Guide to Death. I work in forensics now, and I can't open the book, but you'll notice that on this page, look at that, a lot of writing. But the book itself is full of dead people, and it's every way a person can die. and it's very clinical and very technical. And I read it and I study it, because when I get a case, I need to be able to look at it and say, oh, that was somebody who was, hit with a stick because the bruise is to the side, or the bullet went this way, because you can tell by the marginal rim of abrasion. And I have mentors, and they have been teaching me for 12 years, and I worship them, and they're great. You want to put all this together in 2 books? Right here. Now it's promotion time. I met Glenn when I was 19 years old. We've been together ever since. I earned my right to be with him. He was tough back then. He was kind, but tough. And if you got a grunt from Glenn, you took a tip from the bank. He was, he taught. He was, and I was in his class every week, and I'm still studying with him. We're very good friends, and I'm on the book right here in the back, but I did the first book for him. I can tell you right now, in honesty, that Glenn Vilppu is the greatest living artist today. But if you go back in time and you look at Rubens, probably the closest you'll find to Vilppu would be Rubens. And because Rubens is my favorite, but this book has it in here. So my students, you can get it from me at my school. And if you have the book, cherish it. Okay. My book, we don't really even sell it at my school. We sell it online, because what happened is, when students would buy the book, they say, I got what I need. I don't need you anymore. Okay. But this book is an entire class. It even ends in cartoons. And it starts right at the beginning with how to find the weight. It's very thought out, gives you the different lay-ins and rhythms, planes, anatomy. It's all in here. Okay. So this book, between these two, minus some painting, even though we cover tone in here. Here's your edges, edges are easy, how to group your shadows. It's all in this one book, and you just trace your way through it. So you can contact the school. Just go to sheldonsartacademy.com and just order the book. We'll ship it out to you. And I have a few of Vilppu books. I don't know. We got a couple. I have some. But you can see all the structure underneath the drapery and so on and so forth. Okay, so all the books I showed you, about 70% of what I showed you can be done right here. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Now, when you're studying, do you copy? Yes. When you're trying to get a likeness and you're looking at the distance between the eyebrow and the eye, are you copying? Yes. Yes. When you're out there and you're looking at the reflected light and you're doing a painting, yes. But you have to know it exists first. You need to know what to look for, okay? So we'll end with this. I always tell my students, if you have a piece of glass, God, this is almost an hour, and if that glass slips a little, it's going to hurt a lot. So if the drawing is a little off, it's a lot off in reality. If you're going to take off an airplane, I used to fly in to teach at San Jose State, and boy, that was a crazy experience, but it was worth every minute of it, because, for the first 21 years, you're the best students on the planet. And then it got a little weird, but that's okay. I'm sure the students will do fine. Most of them are great. But what'll happen is, the other ones will figure it out down the road. But if you take off from LAX or Burbank and you're like 3% off, you're not going to land on that little strip in San Jose. And if you take off from New York and you're 3% off, you're going to end up in the ocean somewhere. So we want to try to get you on track. Okay, so again, I've taught a lot of universities, and it's been amazing. I loved it, and I would do it all over again. But right now I'm very selective. I'm at my school, and that's it. I'm at my school, and then a little bit here online. So if you have a question, just call the school, 818-706-9444. And I'm in touch with Glenn all the time, but take advantage of knowing Glenn Vilppu. Okay. All right, everybody. I hope this helps, and a very long-winded answer to a very short question on the YouTube.